Okay. Dear friends of for volleyball, Amor por el Voleibol, I'm pleased to talk today with Australian volleyball coach, ex-national player of his country, who has been coach in Europe, managing teams in Germany, Poland, obtaining important results. In addition, for years, writing a very interesting blog about volleyball at home on the court, generating technical conversations about various volleyball topics of the past, analyzing videos, etc. I mean Mark Lebedew, who is currently with us today talking about volleyball. Hello, Mark. How are you?
Hey, hi. How you going? Great to be here. Finally, that we have a chance to do this.
Fantastic. First of all, Mark, tell me please, when did you start playing volleyball, and why did you choose volleyball as a sport and a love life?
Well, the first contact with volleyball is through my father. My father was involved with volleyball as a administrator. He was working with the local federation and the national federation before I was born. So some of my first memories are being at the gym where they're playing volleyball. Despite this, I never really wanted to play until I did all the Australian things. I played cricket and football and tennis and all of these things, and until I was 14. And then I started to play, and once I started to play, more or less, I loved it from the beginning. Also because for some reason, I was pretty good at it compared with the other kids my age, at least, and so I had success really easily or really early, and from there, I've never been without volleyball for 40 years, more or less.
Incredible. I love of volleyball. Tell me, Mark, when did you join the national team, and how was that experience? You played at school. After that, you played immediately in the national team, or you played in some clubs before?
In Australia, the system is, because of the geography of Australia, we have a really big country with 5 or 6 big population centers, very far apart. So we tend to play in the local cities, in the cities that we grow up in. So I was playing in a club in this competition. Then the regions, the states in Australia have a national competition, and I was playing in the representative teams for the region, more or less as soon as I started playing. So when I was 15, and then I had one experience with the national junior team, and I didn't play a lot in the national senior team, just a couple of tournaments. The way that volleyball was at that time was only amateur. The players were paying the costs for everything, from the shoes to the uniforms to the travel. The coaches were all volunteer coaches. So I played a few tournaments. Even in Australia, I was a good player, but I was never one of the best ones.
Okay, but you loved volleyball for the first moment you saw it, and we talked before about your love for volleyball and your love for some players. Maybe some friends of you at school didn't know. I mean, you loved players like Savin, like Zaitsev, Russian players. And this time, also in Chile, nobody knows about them because we didn't have this worldwide connection. Tell me about this craziness in your youth.
My father was representing the Australian Federation in in FIVB, in Asian Volleyball Confederation. So he was going to some of the big tournaments, not all, but he was in Mexico in 1974. And he went to World Cup in Japan a couple of times also for meetings. And because he's Russian, he struck up a friendship with Platonov, which is also part of the story. And when he came back with the programs and the results, and of course the stories that he would tell were the stories of the Soviet team and Savin and Zaitsev, and even if I never saw any video of them play, I saw the pictures, and especially Savin is even in pictures he's a charismatic guy. So we had the kind of tradition in the school in Australia was on your school bag, you would write the name and number of your favorite football player, and half as a joke, but also seriously, I put the Savin and Zaitsev number on my bag. I remember very well.
I did the same in my school notebooks. I draw these players jumping or smashing. My friend thought I was crazy. And I will jump some question I have prepared for you, because we're talking about this this love for you for this kind of volleyball. When you start with your blog, when you start to writing with your blog at home on the court, and why this is this name that you choose for it, and after that I will ask you about your book. But when start your motivation to write in this blog, and what was your goal?
I always enjoyed writing, and I was when I came to Europe, I was writing the letters to people and telling stories, and so I enjoyed writing, and I actually had a personal blog before I started that, and I was in it was a little bit more than 10 years ago in some club apartment somewhere with nothing much to do, and my first idea was that I wanted to share information about European volleyball with Australian people and Australian coaches. That was the primary objective in the beginning, because we didn't have, in Australia, there was no dissemination of information, and Australians, most of them, except those who have experience, don't really understand the system, the professional, how professional clubs work, how the professional league works. Even the rhythm of playing every week is different from training every day and playing every week. Is not something that we're used to. So that was my first goal. And if you look at you go back to the beginning, now it's 900, nearly 900 posts, I think. But first I was writing match reports, so watching some game on TV and sharing my ideas about the match. After that was I started to write about some ideas that came into my mind, and then about coaching, and now we have the blog that we have. And the name is obvious. It's the place that the court is the place that I always felt at home. So
it's a great.
It is what it is.
I love this name, and as I told you before, I follow your blog and your YouTube channel a lot of years ago. Yes, I know. And I many times I shared your publication, because I find it very, very interesting. And as you published some many articles about volleyball from the 80s that I love so much, because I also, as you, I played in the 80s with many different rules as today. I saw that you also write a book with John Foreman. Tell me about this book, and when it came to idea, what was this experience for you?
Well, one of the great things about the blog is that I've been able to meet a lot of people who have the same interests as me. So obviously, yes, obviously the contact with you comes from there. But John was one of those guys who was reading some of my things, and he wrote me a message. He came, visited me, and we have a lot of the same interests, and he had the idea to basically to interview the successful coaches, good coaches, not only from the highest level, but coaches from high school level, from different countries, men and women, that we can share the experiences, share the knowledge of these coaches with other coaches. You know as well as me that volleyball doesn't have a big literature. There aren't a lot of books that you can buy. There are no biographies of coaches, or just a few. So we wanted to find out this information, share it with people, and to create a volleyball literature. And so we have there's a website program with volleyballcoachingwizards.com, and 2 books. I have one right here. So we have the couple of books with on different topics, some transcriptions of the interviews, and it's a really interesting project.
Fantastic. You're right. There's not so many books about volleyball, especially about coaches.
Yeah.
Did you have, when you started your career as a coach, some of these coaches in mind? Did you have some of the ideas of these coaches? Did you have some coaches special that you admired as a young player and future coach that you wanted to maybe follow his path?
The contact that my father had with Platonov was always in the background. So he would tell some stories about him and what they talked about. But there were no other volleyball coaches that could be examples or mentors. And when I started studying and I started to really study coaches, I was looking. I chose basketball as a sport that is at least the size of the group is the same. So my idea was that the dynamics of the group maybe is similar. So I was reading a lot about different basketball coaches, and from there my shelves are full of biographies and autobiographies of coaches from a lot of different sports.
Exactly. My father, he was my first volleyball coach, and I saw him always studying, reading, writing, doing projects for his training, for the games. And I always admire him and a lot of volleyball coaches around the world who decided to make innovations or try to make some new things, like, for example, Doug Beal with the USA team, and so many other volleyball coaches, Japanese volleyball coaches, Brazilian volleyball coaches. I have the opportunity to talk with some Brazilian players and coaches. They told me about the revolution they have with the first silver generation with Bernard, Amaury, Renan, and the conception about the mix that they make with Japanese and South American volleyball to try to confront the bigger European players. So tell me, please, when you started again with your dream to be a coach, okay, what were your goals? Because you started first in Australia as a coach or in Europe?
I started in Australia. I played one season in Germany in the second division. And this was when I decided I wanted to be a coach. So I was 21 or 22. And I started in Australia, and really I had maybe 2 goals. One was just to be the best coach that I can be, to understand the best, and to be able to create something. And the second dream that I had, or motivation that I had, was to help Australian volleyball to be one of the top teams in the world. So these things are a little bit, I guess they go together, because you have to, if you want to be one of the top teams, you have to keep pushing and researching and experimenting, and those were the two big ideas that I had.
You're right. Tell me, please, first of all, your experience as a coach in Australia, and then tell me, please, about your experience as a coach in Europe. You won many tournaments in Germany, and I ask you later about this in Germany. But please tell me your first experience. You told me you started thinking about it very young. How was it as a coach in Australia? And then how did you get become a volleyball trainer in Germany?
I began. I had the idea that I would keep playing until I was 30, and then I would begin coaching. And then when I was
very old, I thought the same. I
yeah,
said I would play until I'm 30. So old.
yeah. But at this time I was studying to be a coach. My plan was to be a coach, but later.
Okay.
And then when I was about 24, I had a bad back injury, and I couldn't play for 1 year. And at the time that I was injured, the coach of the regional, the state team asked me, he said, well, while you have this opportunity, maybe you can coach one of the state junior teams. So that was how I started while I was still at uni and while I was injured. And then I did a few different things. There was no real career path. It was not a professional opportunity, except with the national team. I spent some time as equivalent of an intern with the national team, and when I was at home, I coached everybody that who would give me $10. So I needed to live. So I was coaching primary school and high school and boys and girls and university classes, and really and other lessons for coaches during this time as well. So I was coaching really everything, every possibility, and then in some moment, with a lot of luck, I had an opportunity to work with the national women's team for a short time. They were waiting for a coach to arrive from overseas, and then an opportunity came with as assistant coach with the men's team with Stella Dorocco as a coach so it was 3 years before the Olympics, 2000.
Okay.
After that, so I was in Australia for a little bit longer, and there was in some time it's time to go out on your own. Was assistant coach in Australia, but I went to Europe. Had one contact basically, and I found the one contact, found one possibility, and I got this job coaching a junior team in Bayer Wuppertal in Germany.
Okay.
And whatever, 18 years later, I live in Poland, and I have my family here, and I've been here for a long time now.
We lived as a family near Wuppertal. Tell me, please, how was this experience for you in Germany? I'm not a very expert in volleyball in Germany. Even my father played in Germany in the 70s, and he was a coach there. Tell me, please, about your experience in Germany, because as a Chilean, we always think Germany has so many potential. Now the men's and volleyball and woman volleyball teams are very successful. But in the 80s and the 90s, before, there was the West Germany teams and the ex-communist volleyball teams that were very, very successful, in men, in women. They were Olympic finalists. They were world champions. How did you? How was your experience in Germany as a coach, and being able to have an evolution in a country where I think volleyball is growing, and I think has even more to offer to the world?
It's not so easy to describe. I had the good fortune, I guess. The first place that I went was Wuppertal, which had really good system inside the club, and I worked with the juniors and the second team, and it was a really big learning experience because I'd never worked in a league before. So the timing, the structure, the organization of the league is much different to a national team or the way that we play in Australia. So I had the chance to learn this kind of rhythm, to to work in the club to learn German, which I didn't really speak a little bit when I arrived, but I needed to learn that. And then after 1 year, I had the chance to coach the first team. So I found that this hasn't really changed, but players are players, different nationalities and different cultures. The volleyball culture is really similar, and people wherever you go are more or less the same. So there are good guys, bad guys, happy guys, angry guys, whatever.
All the time. Yes.
So it wasn't, that part of it wasn't a big kind of culture shock. Of course, sometimes I stop and think, wait, I'm just Australian coach in a big club in a big big-ish volleyball country, but once I'm on the court, I'm at home, like the story goes.
Like your motto, fantastic. And you stayed there and coaches the Berlin Recycling Volleyball team, and you won with this Berliner team some medals. Okay, I saw some games in YouTube against I don't think it was a team named Duran, where a Chilean volleyball player plays. He's a son of a good friend from the Givers family, and
I know him very well.
Yeah, he's left-handed, a very big player. Tell me about this experience. You told me it was not a very cultural shock, but coaching in the first level, the first league of volleyball, it must be a very big thing, I think, for you or your family to be in a world where all the time you're playing, you're training, you have so many expectations, I think, from the crowd, from the players. Tell me how was this experience for you?
In Berlin, you mean?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah. Berlin, I was already working for 6 or 7 years, and I had some experience in Poland. I had some experience in Italy as an assistant coach. And one thing that is maybe difficult to remember now is that when I first went to Berlin, it was a very good team, but it wasn't the top team. And they hadn't been in the finals for a few years. They hadn't won the championship for 6 or 7 years, and everybody at that time was in the shadow of Friedrichshafen. And we were playing in a small gym with 1,000 seats and 500 spectators. So that was the situation when I arrived. And the president and the club, they had some plans, but the plans, of course, you need to have some sporting support for the plans. And the first season, we were playing a few matches in the big stadium, but we had a really good season, and better season than expected, better season than they had for 4 or 5 years, and we made it to the finals. We were very close. Hacking Friedrichshafen and us were equal at the end of the season. And because we had the good season, the president, he did a couple of things at that time. He played the playoffs in the big stadium, which was not organized. And he also paid for the TV. So the TV production, there was no TV production at that time. So with the success, reaching the finals, which was not expected, then they made the next step, which was to be full-time in the big stadium. And from there, we had a difficult season, but won the championship in the end with because everything is timing. You don't have to have a good season; you just have to have a good playoffs. And this was really the beginning. So once we had the first championship, we have the stadium, we have the championship. It's a little bit easier with sponsors. It's a little bit easier with media and promoting the club. It's a little bit easier to get some good players. So after the first season, we could bring Robert Krom back to Germany from Russia, and then this starts the cycle. And now they won, I think, we won 6 of the last 8 championships, or 6 of the last 7, something like that. So, you know, after some time, it's a positive spiral that goes. But it was a really great experience. By the end, it was a lot of pressure and expectation, because once you win one, the people are not satisfied, and after you win 2, they are even much more difficult to satisfy. And we had of course the experience where when we could lose one set, and the press would be shouting at me for what am I doing? So 5 years wasn't enough time in Berlin, but was a really wonderful experience.
So great what you're telling me. After that, you go back to Australia to coach the national team, or when was it?
From Berlin, I came back to Poland,
Okay.
to Jastrzębski Węgiel. It's close to my wife's hometown, where we are now. So the last 5 years, we've been in Poland, working in 2 different clubs. And the job with the Australian team, the work with the Australian team was just the national team coach, so only working in the summer season.
Okay. All right, and you are now in Poland again. Tell me, what's your project over there? What's your goals in Poland as a coach?
Well, for now, the way things are, it's a little bit strange time. I don't have a team for next season, but I have a lot of ideas. I've been working for a few months on different ideas, different thoughts, watching a lot of the old games to kind of piece everything together. So I have some new ideas about how I want to go about things, and really I want to be playing somewhere for championships. So after that, this is just my idea, and we have to find the right place.
I know. And tell me, Mark, as a ex-player, as a coach, as a volleyball lover, what do you like from modern volleyball? What would you change? What would you like from old volleyball, and what would you change? For example, now, if you have the opportunities to change some rules, what would you make?
I really like volleyball now. Men's volleyball, I think is fantastic sport. It's a fantastic spectacle. The skills of the players are they're amazing. They're way above the things that we could do in the past. When I watch the old games, I enjoy them because of the history. It brings back memories. But sometimes I can watch Savin play, and he will make me angry because why is he doing such crazy things? And you know, it's not logical in a way to think like this, because at the time he was the best player in the world. But
I know, it's a thing feeling.
35 years.
For example, when I watch this famous tandem block of the Russian or other team, I don't understand this. Today, it would be impossible to do.
No, because we understand in a much different way. And I watched one game of this Russian team against USA, and I was screaming at the TV after some moment, because they would make the tandem block, and Savin would end up in position 4 because the player would change. Then they would make a defense and set a high ball to Savin. This makes no sense. it's not his best thing. Panchenko is in the middle, the best high ball spiker in the world, and it's they didn't get the block, they didn't get the transition attack, and you know, what are they thinking?
It's very strange. That's right. You wrote about this famous game in World Cup in '85 between the Russian and the USA, and you wrote that maybe it's one of the best games for you, or a very important game, because as it was a long game with 5 sets, and you told the Russian made a lot of errors. For example, the tandem block or change of some players. Even the American team, they played every set better and better. I think the same. I admire so much Sabin and the Russian players, but I watch now the videos and I thought, wow, it's another world, another volleyball, another technique. I think as the same as you, and every time has its magic. I think has its timing. Okay, but I think these players or these teams today would make not much success. I think with the actual rules.
I think they would have. It would be impossible. I think they would never even get the first ball back.
Exactly.
The serve is much too strong. But the strange thing is about Sabin. I think that he would be better now than he was in 1985, because now he only has to spike and block. He
exactly.
doesn't have to.
You're so right.
He's still physical. His attack would, if he came off the plane now, off the time machine, and go straight to the gym, he would score in attack, because he was this is how good he was. And block after 1 week, it's not very complicated.
Yes.
And he doesn't have to receive or defend, and I think he would be better now. But of course, the team and the structure and the tactics is not really possible to play.
It's very interesting what you say, because I must tell you, I'm not a very great fan of the libero position. It's my own opinion, because I was a middle blocker. I'm not a tall player, but I was a middle blocker, and I love to defend, to receive, and to serve. And now and today, the middle blockers, they're very, very tall guys. As you tell, they only serve and make sometimes one position in the background. What do you think about this? You told me you love volleyball, but do you love especially the libero and the banning from the middle blockers from playing behind?
There's no reason that the middle blockers can't play behind. It's the choice of the coaches. So,
you're right. You're right. Yes.
And of course, after the coaches make this choice, the junior coaches follow, and now you can't go back, of course. So, I think a player who would still have all of the skills could change the game, could change the way that we think about it. But it's I was talking with my brother actually today about this, that the libero in some way restricts some possibilities of the game, because there's one less available spiker. You could have 5 spikers before, now you can only have 4. But I think overall I like it, and with the middles, when the middles are bigger, it makes the block better, and when the block is better, then you have more defense, you have more chances to play. So I feel bad for middles. I really feel bad for middles, because they have a really difficult job and they don't get paid for this job. I feel worse for the liberos, because the liberos are I think this is a really big problem in volleyball and the market of volleyball, that liberos are the last players chosen. They get the least money, and I have the Australian libero, Luke Perry, for me is one of the best 3 liberos in the world, but he doesn't have a team. So
I
And
understand.
you are the third best opposite in the world. You have no problem finding a team.
Yes.
This is
Maybe
I think, a problem for volleyball.
maybe liberos could serve, for example. I know in USA they make this experiment that the liberos could serve. I don't know, because I think liberos are too limited in their play. They only can defense, they can receive, they can do nothing more. Sometimes they're set, but they can serve, they can jump, they can block. And I think, as in soccer, the goalkeeper, they play in behind, but he can also make goals sometimes. It's a strange position for me as an old volleyball lover. But well, okay, I applaud that volleyball is in constant motion, in constant evolution. We see every time more and more good championships around the world. That's, for me, I think, the most important thing. I hope volleyball will be still growing and be one someday the most important volleyball the sports in the world. That's my dream.
Mine too.
Okay, fantastic, Mark. I will thank you again for this conversation. I know we couldn't keep talking hours on hours. I know you have your time, but I will thank you again and enormously for this time and your words. As I told you before, and the friends of volleyball from love for volleyball, maybe not know that we are talking about few years via your blog, via Facebook, Messenger, and I always love your post about volleyball, about your questions about the tandem block, the defense, the libero position. It's always so interesting and so amazing. I want to thank you and your brothers for sharing so many so fantastic volleyball, vintage volleyball videos. And now I'm very happy to talk to you. We keep in touch, and okay, I hope your back gets better. You'll find a good team, and I send you many health for you and your family over there in Poland.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Fantastic.